Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Blue Collar Startup. I'm your host, Mike, one of your hosts, I should say, Mike Nelson from Five Towers Media, joined by the other host.
You are the host, Mike. You,
No, no,
yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm Derek Foster with Daigle Cleaning Systems. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm just the one that doesn't shut up, Derek. So that I just incessantly talk, and you have to like fight to jump in. I feel like sometimes.
No, it's great. You do a good job, so I don't really have to jump in. You know what I mean? It works out good.
Uh, we're joined today by Ryan Galusha from Galusha Sons. Ryan, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about your business, about what you do, what kind of the scope of work that you guys cover.
So we do a lot of civil work, excavation, pipe work. We do mostly private work, but we do dabble a little bit in municipalities. We do some pipe work for them. We're doing a bus garage right now for Lake George. So we do a little bit of everything, but it's mostly heavy civil, dirt work, trucking, logging, and some pipe work. So.
So I would say it's for the audience, but really it's for me, Ryan. When you say pipe work, what do you mean?
So sewer, water main,
Okay.
gas, power, everything underground.
Okay. So you're going
So
in, you're digging, and then you're putting those huge ass, what are they called? Culverts?
yeah, yeah, culverts. Yep, there's some culverts, so there's storm drainage and then sewer line, plastic pipe, metal pipe, water line, stuff like that. So
Okay, so you're not just doing the excavating for it, you're doing the installation as well.
right, yep.
Oh, nice. How'd you get into all that?
Um, so it's I'm a third generation. My
Awesome.
grandfather started originally moving dirt. They had dump trucks a little bit here and there. And then my uncle stepped in and he actually traded a Jeep for a bulldozer that only turned one way. And
I
Oh,
love
that's
it.
awesome.
That's amazing.
yeah,
Which way
so
did it turn?
my uncle and my father worked with them. They started digging basements, and then it just one thing led to another. Then they started doing septics, then different parts of the development, and before you knew it, we were doing Walmarts and Home Depots, and it just kind of led into more and more and more, and that's where we sit today.
That's pretty wild, huh? Like how it just kind of, I don't want to say falls in your lap, but you just keep doing what you're doing, and next thing you know, you're getting calls from these huge, gigantic projects, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's you do what's right, and the right things will follow, and that's kind of been our motto all along. It's we always whoever we worked for, no matter what, we did the right thing, even if
yeah,
it hurt, and that
if it
gets
works.
out. So it's they've made a good name for us, and I mean, third generation has its own problems that come along with it, but it's kind of far removed from that struggling with a dozer that only turns one way. We have the right stuff, we have the technology, we have the people. It's just different now,
Yeah.
so it comes with its own struggles, but I'm thankful for them for sticking it out and working through it because it's been a heck of an opportunity for all of us here today.
Yeah.
So,
Which way did the dozer turn?
that I do not know. I never asked. Hopefully to the right, but I'm not
Oh,
sure.
and they used it, right? They still used it and were able to make it work.
Yeah, yeah, I mean that's all they had.
I love it.
My uncle, my grandfather was a visionary, but my uncle, he didn't want to work for somebody else. He wanted to build something, to have something, and he was always an entrepreneur. That was his mentality.
Yeah,
He saw an opportunity to get that dozer, and they made it work.
and they made it work. I love it.
So,
Is he still involved in the business, Ryan?
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So he's been really good for me. He's been a mentor. He handles a lot of the oversight. He's been involved in a bunch of different businesses throughout the years, but he's still involved today. He's not as involved, it's kind of a touch and go type thing where we need him, but he's still around.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. I love
My
it.
father's the same. My father's around as well. He's good at the equipment side of things, and you got a tricky job, something you need figured out my father's good at going in there and figuring that part out, and then he'll leave the details to somebody else. He's not much of a detail guy, but he can get it done.
I'm not much of a detail guy either, unfortunately.
I struggle myself, but sometimes I gotta
Uh,
fight through it.
So
yeah, yeah.
do you feel a lot of pressure, Ryan, being the third generation, or how have you dealt with that? I mean, that's
Yeah.
a big responsibility.
So it's always been in the back of my mind. The third generation always screws it up. I mean, I've heard that from the time I was young.
Yep.
I don't know if it's that we're so far removed from the struggle that, the first generation is fighting, the second generation is watching it. And by the time the third generation comes, it's just already there. So
Mhm.
you sometimes get disconnected from your roots and what it really takes to make things go. So for me, I love the work. I'm passionate about it. I would rather just go do the work than deal with the business stuff. But it's if you're disconnected from what it takes to get your hands dirty, I think sometimes you lose sight of what you're really doing, and that's where the third generation fumbles. But
That's a good point.
it's very difficult to come in, to earn the respect. First of all, you're kind of expected to be the next in line. So you got to overcome that with the guys. They are loyal to my dad and my uncle, and so I have to earn that in a way that is different than what they had to, coming up through the ranks. So I think it was really good for me when so I went to school for civil engineering at RIT, and it was always my hope that I would be part of the company. And when I got done, after I got out of school, I was like, all right, I'm going to work. I'm going to work for Galusha Sons. That's, what I've always wanted to do. That was what I was meant to do. That's what I was born to do. My grandfather, my grandmother, that was always the direction. So I graduated, and I was getting ready to go to work, and my uncle took me for a ride, and he said, what do you have to offer Galusha Sons? And so, I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. And
Yeah.
so I said, yeah, well, I mean, I got a degree in civil engineering. We don't have a civil engineer there. And he says, well, what does that mean for Galusha and Sons? And I had to think hard about it. I don't really know. I can run equipment. I can do the normal things, like I can do the work. But as far as moving the company forward, I really didn't have anything to offer. So he said, here's what I think you need to do. He said, you can't work here. You got to go somewhere else. You got to make it somewhere else. And if it works, it works. And that's his job, to protect the company. And I ended up going to work for DA Collins, Kabricki Construction. And I worked there for 7 years. And it just so happened that they needed help at the time. I had enough under my belt. I had made a name for myself elsewhere. And I came back here, and I've been here this is my 6th year, and it's been pretty smooth. So,
So what did you end up bringing back?
um, I would say a different outlook, different experiences. I had a lot of really good mentors at DA Collins that helped me understand things from a big company standpoint. I was able to learn how to organize and run a job, build a job, bid a job, all stuff that here it would be difficult. You have, 3 estimators. There was 10 estimators, and there were all guys that would help, show you what to do, how to bid, and how to do these things. And it's different work than what we do, but the
Hmm.
concept is essentially the same. So I was able to take some of the stuff from the outside that worked well and bring it back here. And then, I mean, I grew up in the business, so I knew how things here worked. And we've kind of had a meld of both, both worlds. So
Yeah. I know I've heard of people doing that are business owners that have kids that want to come work in the business, and that they're like, you got to go work somewhere else first, so that to your uncle's point, so that you are bringing back something that we do not have currently because you've been exposed to other things. I just always think that's such a great idea.
Well, and the other thing is I had to hold the road myself. I couldn't just ride on my family's coattails.
Yeah.
I had to make a name. Nobody knew who I was. I started just like anybody else. And for me, I feel like that was easier. I had more of a chance starting fresh
Mhm.
than I did with the preconceived notion of, well, here comes the boss's kid, he's just here to ride.
Yeah.
So it was a good opportunity to get out there and have just a fair shot, just like anybody else off the street. And
Mhm.
I had a lot, like I said, I had a lot of really good mentors. A lot of guys took me under their wing, and showed me a lot of different stuff that I'd never been a part of. And it was the best thing that I could have ever done. I would suggest it to anybody, my own son included, is he's going to have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think it's such a solid strategy. And do you think, like you had mentioned before, that you know you had to earn the respect of the people on your team and that are working inside that company, and that if they felt that it was just handed to you, obviously that was going to be a much harder job. Do you think that that helped with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're in it, it's a close area. Everybody talks.
Hmm.
So, I had friends there that knew people here. So that comes across as, I can carry my own weight. I'm not just there to ride.
Yeah.
I think that in other, the guys here can look at that and say, he's not just here to ride his family's coattails. Like, I want it. I want to do it. I want to be here. I want to be part of it. And I want to carry the baton, whatever that looks like.
Hmm.
And that gave me the opportunity to come in here. When I was young, I think I did more damage than good because I just, anybody that I come up against that wouldn't give me a fair shot is like, oh, I don't need you. I'll just bowl by myself. Being 19 years old, you don't really think about the big picture. It's just, I'll just keep bowling. And that was the wrong way to look at it. The most important thing in this business, from what I've seen, is to have people around you and a family around you that'll fight with you. And without that, you don't have anything. That's the company.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what else? Was there anything else specifically that you felt that you had to do to really earn the respect of the guys, or was a lot of it done just because of the work that you did outside the company and then the way you behaved?
um, when I came back, I think there was still a lot of the guys have known me from the time I was a kid. We have our retention rate is pretty high. Our average length of employment here, I think, is like 7 or 8 years. So we have guys that are like 30-year vets. They've been here forever. And a lot of those guys, I think, are the ones that remember the way that it was. And those are all the guys that are running the company. They're the ones that are heading the ship. And then we got a lot of really young guys, in their 20s. They no problem at all. They're great. It was the older ones that have been here for a while that have seen my family, and then Jamie was here for a while. He was the manager. He actually left within the last year, but he was the general manager for 25 years, so they came through him as well. And I think it took a little bit of time for everybody to get comfortable and settled in, but as of right now, everything is going good. I think they know that at the heart of it, their best interest is my priority, and proving that has made a lot of the waves kind of level out.
Yeah, yeah. And what's your role currently inside the company?
I would be the general manager, I guess. So,
So what's a day to day look like for you right now?
so I do a little bit of everything. We have four estimators. So my job would be to review the bids, make sure that we're good going out, we're comfortable with whatever goes out the door, and then kind of, does this fit the time frame, making sure that we have the right work at the right time. And then the next part would be just the oversight, making sure that everything is done, you know, we're headed down the right schedule. We get any hiccups, I have to deal with those. Any of the ownership, the relationships that we have to do, I would get involved to make sure that expectations were met. Little bit of everything. Sometimes I'm running an excavator, sometimes we're running a dozer, laying pipe, whatever it takes, it's,
Whatever it takes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's different every day though. I mean, I don't have no 2 days look the same.
Yeah. So are you so you're a pretty fair split, office and out in the field, or a little more office or a little more field?
I would say it's probably a fair split. This time of year, we have a ton of work, so it's a struggle to get everything done. So I spend more time out in the field. There's always office work. There's never get caught up on that. It seems it's my least favorite thing to do, but I do spend time in the office. But I would say it's a 50-50 split.
Yeah. How do you manage it when you're out in the field, like being the general manager, but obviously you've got guys on the ground that are running the projects. How do you deal with that chain of command when you come on? Do you just say like, hey, tell me where you need me, or how does that work for you guys?
Um, so our managers and our superintendents or foremen, the guys that are running the job, they have good communication. So we have meetings once a week here in the office, and all the managers are here. We talk about what we have coming up, what do we need done, what do we have for bids, what do we have for project issues, and I kind of keep my finger on the pulse there with if something's kind of going awry. And then I talk to all the foremen on a daily basis. So if something's coming up that's going to be difficult, then I usually try to make myself available to help. And if they get up and they get going, they'd rather not have me there anyways, just a pain in the neck. But sometimes I can help, and you can make a decision on the fly, and that to them takes a lot of the pressure off. So it's there's no good way to do it. There's no perfect science. It just kind of is what it is, and I end up where I end up.
Yeah. Yeah, I was always interested in, like I can't speak for D, but I know for myself, like I have our VP of web and print production, and I always tell her like she'll ask me into a meeting, and I'm just like, "Are you sure you want me to go into the meeting? Because you know what's going to happen. I'm gonna take over. Like I can't help it. I like it
Yeah,
just.
no,
I'm gonna take over. I don't. It's not because I want to. I have to. Like
yeah.
so I just always wonder how people manage that. When you have leadership and you don't want to undermine what they're doing and or their role. But
It's difficult, but I have I would say it's the relationship. The guys know that, like I said, their interest is that's the most important. They're to make sure that they're okay. That's the most important thing. So I'm not there to take over. I actually don't like it. I would prefer to kind of take the supporter role.
Mhm.
I'm not the type that wants to be the face of a company. Actually, it is never really where I wanted to be. It's just where it ended up.
Yeah,
So if somebody can do it and they can handle it, that's great. I'll support from the back. I'll get in, I'll run an excavator, you point the direction, and I'll go do it. But when decisions have to be made, I have no problem doing that too. And I think just somebody there to make a decision to take the pressure off makes a big difference for the guy out there on the other side.
yeah,
And that's part of the benefit of where I was, working at Collins. There's always somebody to make that decision. And I learned that that's what makes me feel comfortable. That's what makes me feel like I can do anything because this guy here is watching me. And if we get into trouble, he's going to get me out of it.
yeah.
And that's from what I can see, that's what helps give guys the confidence to do what needs to be done. And so
Knowing that you have that support system there.
yes, yeah. And I'm not there to point my finger and say, you messed this thing up. It's like, all right, we're in a bad spot. Let's get out of it. And as
Yeah,
soon as they're good and they're up on plane again, then I'm on to the next.
solving problems. That's what
Yep.
we do
Yeah.
all day, every day.
Yeah. Which makes it, I mean, it makes it fun. It's stressful. You're living in a constant state of stress, but it still is it's interesting. There's always something, there's a new challenge, there's something you can be doing differently. And then when it all planes out, that's the next step. What is there that we can fix to smooth this thing out? So once we get busy again, we don't have these issues. So there's
Yeah,
always something to do. There's always something to improve upon. And we have a really awesome group. Our guys, like I said, they're like family.
yeah,
So it's fun going to work.
yeah. Well, and you kind of mentioned it like as far as things are changing and trying to stay up on top of those changes. Like I know a lot of industries, whether it's in the trades or out of the trades right now. I mean, technology is changing, all these new things are like, how do you stay on top of, the latest equipment or tool or, regulation? I'm sure you guys are, if you're doing municipality work, I'm sure there's things that are changing every day as far as regs go. How do you deal with all that?
It's kind of learn as you go. You jump in with both feet, and then somebody tells you, well, you can't do that. And then it's like, oh, shoot, it's reactionary. But as you go, you learn. And some of the things we catch, we have a really good office that all the new regs, as far as like the payment goes and stuff like that, they're on top of it.
Mhm.
But a lot of it is just you try a little bit and then you mess it up and then you fix it and then you don't do it again. I
Hopefully
feel
you
like,
don't.
What
yeah,
it's all
hopefully we
about.
don't. Yeah, right. Yeah. But for the most part, I mean, that's unfortunately, that's how I've always had to learn. I got to touch the stove and see why you can't do it. And then it's all right. Well, that's why you can't do it.
Yeah,
But
same.
it's definitely tough. I mean, it's stuff is always changing. I mean, the equipment, my dad and my uncle are really passionate about that. Um, they're always watching the auctions, watching what people are buying and selling and what it's going for. And they'll randomly bring in some piece of equipment. We have no idea what it does, but then we figure out how to use it. And it's like, wow, this works pretty good.
Yeah.
So they get a good buy on something and we try it out.
And like, how do you handle training and for the team that's out in the field? Like, how do you handle that whole situation?
So that's been a tough one. We're actually working with Scott McKenna right now with some onboarding process that we've never done in the past, and especially now where you got a lot of young guys coming in that have no experience with construction at all. So even just the little dangers, like you get too close to an excavator, it swings, the counterweight's going to hit you. Trying to remember all of those things that most of us have been doing for the majority of our life, and then downloading that into these new guys is difficult. It's something that you just kind of got to learn as you go. You
Yeah.
try to hit the big points like, hey, don't get under that bucket, don't stand under the bucket. You think that's common sense, but you put yourself back in that. When you're young, you're like, well, the bucket's hooked to the excavator, it's not going anywhere, it's fine, I can get under there. You just um I think that's something we need to work on, and
Mhm.
the onboarding process. But as of now, it's just kind of, you just learn as you go. You got hopefully enough people around you that are watching out for you and paying attention that we're able to train as we go.
Yeah. And that was going to be one of my questions too, because I know that Scott connected us all and to help arrange this. And obviously, Catamount Consulting, that's what they do is training, whether it's safety training or leadership training. And I was going to ask you is have you guys gotten into using organizations like Scott's for not just even the safety piece, but have you gotten into any of the like, and this is really a personal question because I'm really geeking out about consultants and coaches and outside organizations that can help you be better internally. And so I'm just wondering if you guys are doing any of those kinds of things.
Yeah, so Jim Keating, we've done a ton of classes with him, like leadership training. So we'll bring in our foreman or some up and coming guys that are looking, to eventually get into leadership. And we've gone through, different things like the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. We've done a little bit taken out of that, and then the last one we did was Zig Ziglar, a book that he had written. We went through and kind of we'd read through it and then talk about it and kind of pick out the golden nuggets, as Jim would say, about what he's trying to say, and that has been really helpful from what I can see.
Yeah.
And it's not only the content that comes from it, it's the practice of hearing something new, formulating an opinion on it, and then standing up in front of a group of your peers and giving it back. That's, I've seen a lot of growth in our guys from a leadership standpoint, just from the practice of getting in front of a group of your peers and speaking of something you have no idea, you never heard of it until just now. So
Yeah.
it's been that's been really good. We do that once a year. And then with Scott, we do foreman training, leadership training. Like we'll bring all the guys in and talk about some of this is a quarterly meeting, talk about some of the things that have happened, incidents and things that we need to get better on. And then we'll just kind of cover some of the same concepts of leadership with our foreman. So
What I'm curious, and I think it'd be valuable for the listeners too, as far as obviously training like that is never cheap, right? So you're looking at the more people you have in that training, the higher the financial impact. But obviously you're spending money. You think there's obviously an issue that you're trying to overcome, right? Like there's a reason why you're bringing these people in to do this training. What were some of the things that originally made you think like, hey, we need to get some training. We need to get some outside people in here with our team.
well, I think Jamie, the general manager that was here before me, he did a good job. He knew what it took to get people bought in and feeling a part of the team and understanding the direction and as a group, what is the culture that we're trying to cultivate here. And I think that's kind of how it started. There's guys that are good at what they do, but not very polished in the leadership side of things. So
Mm-hmm.
you're taking a guy that just say is a mechanic and you want him to be the head of the mechanics. He's really good at mechanic work, but he's not so good at communicating. So what do you do to help him with that? And these classes that Jim Keating has put on has been instrumental to some of those guys stepping up and understanding how to not only do what they do, but to help others do what they do.
Yeah.
And I think once we started with that, like you can see the growth in people and even their families. There's wives of the guys that have been a part of the class saying, hey, whatever you're doing here is working, because not only are they stepping up, as a leader at work, but they're stepping up as a husband and a father, and they're communicating. And these are life skills that are benefiting all across their life, not just here at work. So that is something that I feel is worth investing in. These guys are, like I said, are our family. And if this is benefiting their families, even one guy out of a group of 12 of them, it's worth doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an awesome mindset. Awesome way to look at it, man.
So I got a quick question, Mike, before you
I
ask
was
it.
just about to say, hey, G,
You sneak
you want
one
to
in there.
take a
No,
breath?
I heard you speaking about, the new guys that are coming in, Ryan, and how you have quite a few of them. Where are you finding your new recruits and the guys that you're bringing into the business? What programs are you finding them from? Are they from, colleges? Are they from, the trade schools? Where are you finding them?
I would say the majority of people we have here are family of the people that work here. It's word of mouth. Those are the guys that seem to show up the most. But we work with BOCES, and we have a lot of the guys that come out of BOCES that are they come in for internship or whatever, so they'll come on with us as an intern, and then they'll work until they get out of school, and then when they get done they'll come work with us. Some of them stay, some of them go somewhere else, but there's been a pretty good turnover with the guys coming out of BOCES. And then just like I don't some of the internet places like ZipRecruiter, we had some stuff on there. Indeed, we've got some guys out of there, but that's kind of hit or miss.
Gotcha. What do you see in the labor force? I mean, that's great that you're getting, yeah, that those are the best referral sources, your current employees who do a good job for you, for sure. We have a similar um, process here at our company. But what is your outlook, with the blue collar workforce and the trades in general?
um I would say when I was growing up, I can always remember my father saying, you got to go to school, you got to use your head, not your back. And that was everybody I know, all my friends, they all said the same thing. So I think there's an aversion to using your back. Um, I would say for those who think higher education is the way to go, in you have something specific that you're going to school for that you can actually utilize, then that's great. But for all the people that are unknown or like being outdoors, like being part of that, the construction's a really good career. I mean, you can do pretty well with zero education, zero debt. You just go to work. But I feel like there's that aversion to having to work so hard, work the hours that we do, shovel, be out with the bugs. You just don't see a lot of guys that want to do that anymore. So I think there's a big gap in the workforce just with the fact that the boomers are getting to retirement age. To me, it seems like they are a huge population. So that you're losing that in the workforce. And we've been building Home Depots and Walmarts and Dunkin' Donuts and all these places we've been building for years and years and years. So you have plenty of places to work and not the same amount of people to do the work as you had before.
Yeah.
So I definitely see an issue with um, young people not wanting to be in construction, be in the trades. It's kind of looked down upon at times. Um, but anybody that's here that does the work, they all love it. It really is a good line of work. And like I said, if I had it to go do over again, everything worked out the way it did, and it was great. But I don't know that going to college was necessary. I don't use civil engineering for anything that I do. I would say the one thing that I learned out of that was I hated school, and that solidified in my mind I hate school. But it was the learning the discipline to stick it through the things that you don't want to do. That was what I learned the most out of school because I hated high school, I hated college, and once I went to work, I love it. I was super happy. But I think if you try it, guys would like this. It's good work. So, and a lot of opportunity.
A lot
Yeah,
of
civil engineering is not an easy way to go either, an easy degree to obtain. So
Well, and that's a whole nother story for a different
yeah,
how I ended up there. But once I committed, that was
yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
wasn't quitting. So I got through it and I hated it.
you didn't want to change your degree 4 times and have it take 4 times as long.
That's not, I mean, that when I make my mind up, that's it. I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
So I started and I said, this is terrible. Everybody else is messing around partying and I got to actually stick my head down and work or I'm not going to make it. It was a tough one, but at the end of the day, I made a decision and I just stuck with it. And like I said, I wouldn't take it back now. I learned a lot about myself. I learned how to learn. I learned self-discipline. And but if I looked at it differently, I might not do the same thing. Going to work really isn't a bad option.
Hmm.
I tend to agree. I
Yeah.
definitely lean the same way as far as that goes. And just a quick follow-up question too on the workforce stuff. I know you had mentioned that this time of year you guys are busy. Um, do you are you seeing staffing shortages with your company, or are you full up? And then the other side of it is obviously no want for work, I'd imagine, in your line of work.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, we're busy. We're uncomfortably busy. Hopefully that continues to be the case. It's better than the alternative for sure.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, no, the workforce is extremely difficult to keep and to maintain, um, or to get new people on. We've done pretty well this year, but the last couple of years, I mean, summertime would come and you'd have a stack of resumes on the desk that you could just look through. Now you're begging for resumes, and we're taking guys that have no experience whatsoever in construction. There's guys that are Amazon truck drivers or chefs or whatever, anybody that's willing to show up and put the work in we'll take anybody. It's
Yeah.
been difficult to find somebody that has any experience in construction.
Yeah.
But it's these guys that are coming in that have zero experience have had excellent attitudes and they really have been enjoying it. So I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing.
Yeah. I'd imagine that's going to be a trend that is going to continue with people coming into the trades from other arenas, just because, I mean, read every day, like Microsoft's laying off however, like 10,000 people, like all these industries that are non-trade based are just going through huge layoffs, and whether that's AI related or whatever. But there's just going to be an influx of people with no skills for the trades, but the only work that's going to be there is going to be the trades, right? Because
Right.
people,
Yeah.
to your point, people don't know how to do it, and there's a lot of work to be done.
And that is more important, in my opinion, that the attitude
Yeah.
than skill. I'll take a guy that has no idea what he's doing with a good attitude any day over the guy that knows what he's doing but has a terrible attitude.
Yeah.
So
Hard to train a good attitude, right?
it is, it is. It's something that's a mindset, and they can come from wherever, anywhere. I mean, like you said, they can come from Microsoft. They can be an Amazon truck driver. They can be a chef. Any of these guys, that attitude can come from anywhere, and those guys are the ones that are the most successful.
Yeah. D, I felt like you had another one there before I jumped in.
No, I was just gonna say, Ryan just reaffirmed, the EQ conversation that Scott and Stacy just came up with. So it's nice to hear that, that it's being put into practice, and that it's true. And we have the same thing in our company as well. Give me somebody with no skill and a good attitude, and we'll teach you everything you need to know.
Right?
Yep. All you got to do is show up and have a smile on your
Yeah.
face.
Yep.
It's that easy, but that hard at the same
It
time.
seems like it's very difficult to do or find.
Ryan, as you've come in over the last 6 years, what do you think the biggest challenges that you saw coming in, being third generation, coming into a growing and ever changing industry? What's that been for you?
I would say number one is people. Um, the work is always the same. I mean, the regs change, the specs change, but the concept is always the same. And I mean, technology changes, but it's still the same thing. You got to make the site flat. You got to make the water flow downhill. You got to have sewer. You got to have water. You got to have storm, power, gas. That stuff's always the same. People are always changing, whether it's the customers, the people that work here, and they're so dynamic where everything else is pretty black or white.
Mhm.
And I would say probably that has been the most difficult aspect for me to overcome stepping into the shoes that I've been stepping into is just, how do you have a workforce that is close enough that you can take on the stuff that we have to take on? We spend more time with each other than we do our own families at home. So how do you step in and be a part of that and lead a group of guys that are used to following somebody else? It takes time, it takes patience, and that was difficult. You just want to step in and say, "All right, guys, here we go. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going," and that's not how it works. It's not that easy. So, and it's the same thing with even the customer base. They get used to working with a certain person, and then it all changes, turns over. There's a lot of uncertainty there, and a lot of question marks. Well, how's this going to go? And that's been pretty difficult to overcome.
So how did you overcome?
I would say um, just patience. Instead of coming in swinging the sword, saying it's my way or the highway, it's coming in and saying, "All right, what do you guys do? What do you like to do? What's the direction that we're headed as a company? Where are we? And what can we do better? What are the things that we don't do well? What are the things that we can do better?" And then be a part of the fix and not just the problem. If I'm coming in and saying, "Oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong," people are just gonna, just halt, stop. That's
Yeah.
not how it works. This thing's working. It's been working for 2 generations. So how can I help? How can I help get us to the next place? And how far do you guys want to go as a group? What do we want to do? Where do we want to go? What are you trying to accomplish? And you paint that picture, and there's always the rule of averages. The average is going to be the same thing. The most people are trying to accomplish the same thing. And I think that's to have a place to work where you're not just a number, you're part of a family, you're part of a culture that cares. And how do I go home to my family every night? We a group of guys that don't want to be on the road. We want to be home every night with our kids, able to make it to baseball games, as many as we can. And I think that's the general consensus within the company. So it's, knowing that, how do we structure and continue doing, the things we like to do in those parameters?
Mhm.
And, I'm come from a company that we traveled. I live in Geneva for 2 years, out towards Rochester, and that's just what we did. So it's kind of redirecting your mind and figuring out, all right, well, we guys don't want to go to Geneva, so that's off the list. So how do we work within, what we got within the box that we have, and how do I learn how they work and change myself to fit that mindset rather than try to change everybody to fit my mindset? It it,
Yeah.
it made it significantly easier for me to be a part of it and then figure out, all right, well, now this is where we're going. How does my skill set help get us there?
It's interesting. So where are you going? So what does the future look like for Galusha Sons?
So I would say, for me, it's I don't want to be any different than a family-owned company, and I don't think anybody that works here wants to be any different. We don't want to be a corporation. We don't want to travel. Um, so how do we work here, in a limited pool and still continue to grow? Um, that's the difficult part. There's got to be growth, but it doesn't always need to be size. We can take on more specialized work, which we've done. We've got into clearing, doing a lot of clearing, logging work in the last 5, 10 years. We've done a lot of that. We got into more municipal work where we really didn't do a lot of that. And I think just branching out and specializing is kind of the direction we're headed right now. So, and I mean, it's a moving target. What works today might not work tomorrow. But we got a group of guys that are willing to do whatever it takes. The economy goes down, there'll always be toilets to fix. There'll always be landfills to build. You guys want to dig graves. There's things that are always going to be there, and there will always be work for somebody that's willing to do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the mindset that we have. We're not above anything. We'll do whatever we got to do, and we'll do the best we can at it.
I'm curious about how you guys ended up moving into logging. I mean, obviously there's, a lot of the same equipment is going to be involved with clearing and everything. But was it just, kind of like we were talking about earlier, where it just kind of happened that way, or was it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, we're doing all the work, and we started with the basements, then the septic, and then the roads, and then the next thing you know, it's like, well, we got to clear all this work, so we're calling somebody else in here to do the work. Then we get so much of it that they can't keep up. So what do we do now? They're limiting us from moving forward. We're paying X amount of dollars. Let's just go buy a feller buncher. We'll cut it ourselves. And then, we got a chipper and a guy that could run it. And he was here for a long time. And we would just chip all the wood, everything, logs, everything, just go right through that chipper. And then Dad and Uncle Dan are on a auction, and they find a processor, and they got a good deal on it. They bought it. So then we started processing the wood and making pulp and logs and different um, types of wood. And then in the wintertime, we would have nothing to do. Construction is slow, so we would go log. And it just kind of one thing led to another. And we got a group of 10 guys that's all they do is clearing. So it
I,
just,
it's always fascinating to hear those stories about how different like segments of the business, how it happened, right? Like it's I know from the outside in, probably are thinking like, oh, strategically going into this market, but it's just always like there's just so many things that just kind of happen because someone says, hey, you think you could do this? And it's like, yeah, I think I could. I never
yeah,
have, but I'll try.
It's one of those things where if you want to be successful, it's easier to identify your non-negotiables than it is to identify your goal,
Mhm.
because success looks different to everybody, and you can be heading down a path, and there might be a wall right in front of you. If you take one of these doors to the side, you go right around it. You have no idea. If it doesn't go against your non-negotiables, then it might be a good opportunity. So do we log? No, not really, but we have somebody do it all the time. So let's try it, and
Yeah.
you can't be afraid to take the opportunity as it arises.
Yeah. Yeah. Worst that happens, it doesn't work out and you don't do it again, right?
Yeah, and that's what it is. Sometimes that's the way it was. And sometimes you fail. That's what it takes. You might fail. Usually you fail more than you succeed, but as long as you succeed that one time, you just keep trying, you'll get it.
Get it. Uh, Last question for you, Ryan. Probably the most important question we ask on these interviews is, if you were going to tell someone thinking about the trades, considering the trades, if you're going to tell them one thing about why they should join the trades, what would it be?
I would say that there's an opportunity whenever somebody or a group of people is saying that you shouldn't do this for whatever reason. You don't want to break your back. I don't want to do this. I don't like it. It's too hard to work. Whenever you're seeing a lot of people say that, that's where you want to be, because that's where the opportunity is. So if you hear somebody saying, I don't like this, I don't want to do it, whatever, that means there's a wicked opportunity. You take it.
Yep.
And I would say there's a lot of opportunity right now in construction and the trades, and it's only going to get greater. It's good to have a hard skill, such as, electrical work or construction or equipment operating, any of that stuff. That's something you'll never get. You'll always have work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ryan, really appreciate you coming on the show, man. If people want to learn more about Galusha Sons or they want to get in touch, how do they find you guys?
We do have a Facebook page, but our office is on Dix Avenue, Galusha Sons, and we have a website as well, Galusha Sons. I think it's .com. But yeah, look us up. We're out there. We're all over the capital region. So
Nice. Like I said, I really appreciate you coming on, spending some time with us and giving some information. I think probably a lot of usable information to our listeners. So I really appreciate it.
yeah,
Thanks a lot.
I appreciate.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
D, anything to wrap up that I forgot or missed or didn't
No,
let
I love the Joe Rogan shirt though. I got a comment on that before we jump off. I got nervous. I thought it was a Joe Biden shirt there.
No,
Not
sir. No, sir. Uh,
oh,
Definitely Joe Rogan. My son got this for me for my birthday because he knows I'm a big Rogan fan. So
that's awesome.
shout out to Joe Rogan. Don't be afraid to listen to the show, man. Don't be afraid to talk about it on your podcast, Joe. Uh, Real quick, just want to thank our sponsors, People's, Bonaccio Construction, Martin Electric. Obviously, Scott and Stacy over at Catamount do so much to help us with the show. They come on, they give us content ideas, they introduce us to people like Ryan. So thank you so much to those guys. Thanks to MLB Construction. Thanks to Michael's group. Am I forgetting somebody?
No, you did a good job.
I keep threatening to make a list and actually write it down to be prepared, but I never do it. So, but one of these days, I'm gonna have a nice thing that I can read from, so I know I'm not missing any. But really, thanks, big thanks to those guys for the financial support and other support that they give us and give the show and make it all possible. And I think that's it for this week.
And that wraps up another episode of Blue Collar Startup. A big thank you to our sponsors, 5 Towers Media, Daigle Cleaning Systems, Daigle Fire Solutions, The Michaels Group, Martin Electric, MLB Construction, Bonaccio Construction, People's, and Catamount Consulting for making this podcast possible. And thank you for tuning in. If you learned something or felt inspired, connect with us on our website at bluecollarstartup.io or email us at hardhat.bcsu@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your questions and topic ideas. Help us spread the word by sharing the show and following us on social media for updates. Until next time, Keep on building, keep on dreaming, and keep hustling like your future depends on it.